today. So today, I think this is going to be a fun discussion. We have Joel and Andy in the studio. They happen to be from Mastery, and I wanted to have them come and kind of chat about the conversation we were having. We were having the conversation offline, and I thought, hey, let's take it up online and talk about kind of what is happening. So the today is crash market and the foreclosure wave going into 2023. So this should be kind of fun. Before we get into that, make sure you are a member of Burr Cash Flow Investors. If you're not, invite your friends. I was just telling them that they're like, man, we can invite a lot of people. And when it's the Caribbean getaway, right?
Yeah.
For you and your wife, it's Caribbean getaway. And the goal is this time it's going to be the Caribbean getaway, and then it's going to be a Mercedes. So each year we want to give away 3 Mercedes a year. We're going to do that next year. Each quarter we're going to do that. So it's going to be something fun that we want to build up to as we get everybody going. So whole point of the Burr Cash Flow Investors is to invite fun guests, to learn, grow together, and bring your friends and family, be part of this whole group. So having said that, guys, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So first of all, as a point of reference, what do you guys do exactly?
So Andy and I are mortgage consultants with Nexa Mortgage. We help everyone from first-time home buyers to investors, first-time investors, and people sometimes in a tight spot or they just want to pay off their home.
Okay.
Andy, you want to add on to that?
Yeah, we work with many different banks. So we don't just do the vanilla conventional FHA, VA. We have 189 different banks to work with. So we can do things like the hard money, the DSCR. We even did a loan for somebody that doesn't even have a job or things like that. So we have a different creative ways to be able to lend to people, especially in people in Mastery.
Okay, got it. So people that may be watching from Mastery or just in general, you're talking about kind of somebody that you're doing a loan for, even because you can do loans in almost all the states.
Right now, we can do it in 48 states.
48 states,
except
okay.
for Massachusetts and New York for now.
Okay, got
that
it.
could change.
So you're talking about a loan somebody's doing, happens to be in California, buying a $1.6 million house, and then he's fixing it up, correct?
Yeah. Right.
And his income, though, on the other end is what?
So his income, this particular client is about 350,000,
350
but
or
only
so.
declares about 120 or so for income.
Okay, so think about that, right? That's really creative. Where you have income of 120, you're buying a property for 1.6 million, and then he's going to do a loan and then basically refi out.
Yeah. So
right?
So typically it's a problem because of the debt to income ratio. So in this particular client, we're able to do hard money. Have a term of 6 to 36 months. Just so we can own it, and because it's not ready, it's gutted currently, and it needs to be fixed. So he's able to do a construction on that, and still able to refinance into a loan where he doesn't even need to show income. Either on a community lending where it's a blank 1003 and then refinance to get access to the 80% of the value, or a stated loan. And so be able to do it that way.
Okay, so let's kind of talk about a little bit about the market, right?
Sure.
Because this is a current topic, right? With FTX is crashing, all this crazy stuff that's been going on. People supposedly being, not paper billionaires anymore, being computer billionaires, right? And all this craziness. But there's a lot of havoc in the market, right? The interest rates have clearly gone up. What are you seeing in terms of the percentage of foreclosure rates?
Well, one thing about Chicago is going to be very, very unique because it's its own thing. But nationally, right now, as far as foreclosures is considered, I mean, we have the safest mortgages around than ever before. However, Chicago is a little bit different, so we may have a higher percentage when it comes to foreclosures. I'm hearing different numbers. I don't want to quote nothing because I'm hearing 9% here, 7% there. So I wouldn't want to misquote anybody, but I do know that we're going to have a different market here in Chicago in terms of foreclosures.
So in general, right, and this is important to understand, that 1% is considered normal, right? 1% foreclosure rate generally is considered normal. So that means for every 100 houses that have a mortgage on them, right, you're going to have 7, 8, 10%, depending on the part of the country you're in, that are going to be paid off, right? And then you're going to have rest of them that'll have mortgages. Out of that, 1% or less is considered a healthy economy, right? A healthy foreclosure rate. Today, the foreclosure rate around the country we're talking about, because Chicago is going to be a unique animal. We'll talk about that here in a second. But around the country, the foreclosure rate is less than it has been in the last 20, 25 years, right? So this is something that a lot of times that people would have you believe, oh my God, the foreclosure rate is through the roof. Guys, it is not, right? At least not right now. Now, mind you, right, when 9/11 happened, or when the 90s stock crash happened, when 2008 happened, everything was great until it was not, right? I mean, suddenly everybody was a multimillionaire. People are doing loans. And then one day, boom, the switch got turned off. So that does not mean that as the economy changes, things may not change. But currently, you guys are not seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what they say in the media, and Joel and I, we're in the trenches. You know, we do you know, real estate and mortgages every day, but our clients are still buying. You know, they're still accessing the equity. There's still a lot of equity out there. So people are still using not only their own money, but even the bank's money, and accessing that equity, you know, through different things like we discussed earlier, accessing it through the line of credit. So not only that they're able to pay off their current loan in a shorter period of time, so instead of 30 years into 5 years, but also having access to money, and like what we do is invest in more properties to get more passive income.
Right. Now, having said that, right, I want to be clear about this, is that what had happened was everything was hyper, meaning that norm is, as it is norm-wise, we're coming out of 10-year cycle almost, right? Last time the market was down was 2012. That's when it started recovering, even in the Chicago market, Detroit market, Cleveland market. These are the lagging markets, Philly market, right? And all the way until almost even Corona, we were like literally on a 45-day holiday, right? And then boom. I mean, it picked up like tomorrow, and it blew up, right? My point being is that we haven't seen a normalcy of the market after it corrected. And then once it took off, it's just never seen anything normal. So today, tempering of the market, there is nothing wrong with it as far as I'm concerned. Now, does that mean that it's like you've been fat, dumb, and happy all this time? It sucks, man. To go on a diet, it sucks. And that's what we are on. They are putting us, the whole country, on a diet. So you basically are bringing the sales down, you're bringing everything down, because they're trying to say, hey, we can't go kicking the can down the road. I mean, you know, they're down the road. But on your end, as far as apps, right? If you guys are doing mortgages, that's how you make money. Is that down?
Well, applications are down in its entirety. However, you know, when you're working, it's hard to say when we're working with investors. We're working with specialty products where we're helping people get out of debt in a very short period of time, and we're helping them, you know, use their leverage. You know, we're going to have a spike, you know, different than, you know.
So they need people who are a little bit more creative on the loan side.
That's correct.
Right? Because your regular FHA, like the box type of a loan, you know, a paper loan, that is going to dry out.
Correct.
Right? But your business goes up as the business changes.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, we get creative with the equity, and especially if they want to use that equity to buy more properties, then, you know, that's when we really put, you know, our thinking caps on and we work with them. Andy?
Yeah. So yeah, we're forced to pivot as loan officers. You know, we can't just rely on purchases, the regular, you know, FHA conventional. So, you know, we are able to do a little bit more creative things like the DSCR or bank statement programs, or again, accessing HELOC. Because again, there's a lot more equity out there than people realize.
You know what was interesting? We were kind of laughing about it. So obviously, right, the first property that I used to live in at one time, right, when I started investing, I was like, guys, let me show you the numbers, right? I mean, because I've never hidden it, that's how I started. Like literally, that was the first property where I got a HELOC, right? And I'm like, hey, I still own the property. I mean, clearly I'm never going to sell it. It's rented out for long term. And I'm like, there's a loan for about 174 on it. There's a HELOC behind it for 33 or something. And I'm like, you know, I have a Bentley, I have a Rolls, I have a Mercedes that's paid off. right? And you said something interesting, which I'm like, hey, why don't you use my example? Forget about all the investments, right? Let's just say somebody doesn't have the investments. Let's put all of that aside. What if, because if I take that little townhouse, the debt on it, which is the HELOC, and only the payment on the Bentley, right? That's $4,500, right? Now, could I obviously pay all those three things off? Sure. Would it affect me? No. But the point is, why would I? Right? I have plenty of cash flow income, plenty of other income. Doesn't make any sense. But you're like, hey, what about, right? Take the HELOC, right? Expand the HELOC, pay off the Bentley. Right?
Absolutely.
And your total payment shrinks significantly. So not only, so think about this, right? You have assume you have a house or a whatever, right? You live in a townhouse, doesn't matter. And you have a crazy car, or you have a normal car, doesn't matter. What if you could shorten the period in which the car will get paid off in a couple of years. The house takes generally 30 years, right? And how about if you could get that all paid off in 15, right? And it changes the whole perspective. And I'm like, we'll do that with my thing. It'll be fun to look at that example. And I don't have to use other money to do that. Just within that payment, I could pay it off in 10, 12 years.
So Joel and I, have access to the home equity line of credit. So people don't realize, when you pay your mortgage, most of it goes to interest, guys. So out of let's say the $2,000 mortgage payment that you have, maybe $1,500 of that goes to interest. So this whole idea is to not only have that interest that you should pay for the bank, which by the way is pure profit to them. So either keep it in your pocket and put it into principal. So now your maturity date comes to 30 and goes shorter and shorter and shorter. So as soon as like 5 years, you're able to pay it off. Either that or use that same equity to buy more property. So in your case, we were just having fun with the numbers. So with your case, we were able to access equity about 90 to 95%.
Right.
So we are not only are we able to pay off the second loan, but able to pay off the Bentley.
Right.
So we're switching the payment of like a $2,000 payment down to like $530.
Correct. And it's interesting because I obviously the car for me, because I'm a full-time real estate professional, it's an expense, right? The rolls is an expense on the seminar side of the business, right? So these are legitimate expenses, but it doesn't matter who you are, right? Today, it's not a big deal, right? But at one point, that would be considered a crazy situation to be in, right? But the total debt, because the house I live in now, the condo, that's paid off. I don't have debt on it, fortunately, right? But you can put yourself by just making strategic moves, right? A lot of really what we do in real estate is making strategic moves, right? And that can get you a long way. So before getting distracted, I want to come back to the discussion we're having, which was about kind of foreclosures, right? And this is an important thing for people to understand, that foreclosures that you see today, they started 2, 3, 4 years ago, meaning that they came in the pipeline, somebody fell 30 days, 60 days, 90 days behind, then a foreclosure lawsuit was filed, and then it's taken through the term of the foreclosure for it to end up as an actual foreclosure, right? So if that's the case, how is it Chicago different than, I think Chicago, Cleveland, Philly, Detroit, those cities, the older cities, are going to be a little bit different, right, than the rest of the country. I do not see a problem in Florida. Now, that does not mean that people who bought properties last year are not going to lose money. If you bought a house last year, you're going to have to sell it this year. You're going to lose money, 99% of cases, because that's just too short a term. So you want to explain why Chicago is a little bit different in terms of equity position compared to the rest of the markets?
Well, it's a little bit different because it ties into the employment numbers.
Right.
So as long as people are able to keep their jobs, and most people are. I mean, the job numbers are still very good numbers. So when they keep their jobs, people are still able to pay their mortgages.
Right. So let me ask you this, right? Let's say I take an area like Berwyn, right? You take Berwyn, I would consider a bread and butter neighborhood, right? So in Berwyn, if I have a property that's a single family house sold for $380,000, $390,000, $400,000, right? Man, you're pushing the numbers, right?
Yeah.
People are going to say, hey, if the market drops and now that same property is worth only 320.
Right.
People are going, oh my God, I'm upside down. I bought the property as an FHA,
Mhm.
right? And Chicago has more FHA than almost anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Pretty
So
much.
there's not as much equity that is built up. That, do you think that can open up a can of worms a little bit? Because that happened. We saw that happen 2008.
Well, it'll be harder for them to access their equity,
Right.
just because initially, and then a lot of people, especially in Chicago, have used down payment assistance programs, so they're pretty much stuck in that property
Right.
just because they can't
Yeah.
get out of it, unless it's that one program I mentioned to you earlier. But I just think that it's going to be hard for somebody to access their property unless they actually put some money into their property, or the area sold outperform other neighborhoods,
Right.
where their equity actually increased. But that's the only way I see it happening, at least right now.
And it's very different from 2008. Banks are willing to work with you.
Right.
We've seen so much forbearance numbers, and nobody really knew what the word
Right.
was till the pandemic happened.
So forbearance is
So forbearance has happened.
No,
So
now, and what's interesting, I mean, listeners will kind of appreciate this today, right?
Mhm.
If there is a storm, even in Florida, guess
Mhm.
what? You call AT&T, you call any of your service providers.
Mhm.
They're like, hey, have you been a victim of this? Are you a financial hardship? Now we're addressing problems
Mhm.
way early on,
Correct.
right? Used to be that you couldn't call a bank and say, hey, I mean, so today, ask for help before you need it.
Correct.
Right? I mean, that's, if there's one lesson that we learned from that, and I think even from the Fed side, every side, is that they're encouraging that,
Mhm.
right? So I think there's more help available, but from where I see it, I think nationally we're going to be okay, right?
Most
We're
definitely.
not going to like it. Nobody wants to go on a diet to get in
Yeah.
better shape, right? It just sucks. You can't, well, you mean I can't eat a pound of ice cream? Well, no, you can't,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of what is happening. But certainly in Chicago, certainly around the country, there are opportunities that are going to open up.
Yes.
So I want to, before we kind of wrap up for today, I want to go through the program you were talking about, right?
Right.
Because this was such a great program,
Mhm.
and for a lot of people, right? Even a lot of people from Mastery,
Mhm.
right? They should take advantage of this, and they should reach out and talk to you. This is kind of a hybrid. So you have a regular house hack, right?
Mhm.
So let's say somebody wants to buy a 3-unit property, 3.5% down,
Mhm.
right? They get a little bit of seller assistance, and then they can buy that property. Or with the 203K, they can not only buy the property, but they'll get money for the rehab
For the rehab.
for 3.5%. But you guys were just talking about another program where they can get additional money. So how does that work exactly?
So basically, the way it works, it's a legit down payment assistance or grant, whichever you want to call it. It's a grant, and it's forgivable at closing. So
Hold on, slow. So it's a down payment assistance, but with the down payment assistance, sometimes it's like you have a payback period, or
Mhm.
sometimes you have a
Recapture.
period in which you have to live in the property.
that's correct.
Right? Like if the city has that, or if it's a growth area or whatever they call that, like economic corridor or whatever they call that.
Correct.
This is not that.
Yeah.
So this is not a payback.
It's not
You
a
don't
payback.
have to live in the property for
Well,
2, 4, 3, 4 years.
Correct.
Yep.
As long as this is an FHA only program, and as long as you sign that 12-month affidavit that you're going to live in the property, then it's yours.
Yeah. So your intent has to be that you're going to be occupying the property.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Because of the FHA program.
Yeah. The intent
Okay.
still has to be a primary residence.
Correct.
But there's no recapture. So you're right. So typically you need to live there for 5 years to 10 years.
Right.
In this particular down payment assistance, you don't need to live there particularly.
Got
So no recapture. So
Okay.
heck, as soon as 6 months, you can refinance and again
And pay it back.
and access that equity again, and
Right.
then get a HELOC and
Exactly.
do the
Right.
same thing.
Well, as a matter of fact, you just helped a family of
Yeah.
investors with $13,000 in down payment assistance
Right.
forgiven at closing. So they were literally signing the papers as soon as the loan funded. That grant was forgiven.
Right.
So let me say this again, like the whole 3.5%, which is the minimum down payment that FHA requires, that's the whole down payment assistance. So the whole 3.5 required is going to be paid for free. It's forgivable
Through the grant.
through the grant.
Through the grant, right? And a lot of times people, especially for people who listen to what we do, who are a part of what we do, right? We were talking about it, right? You have a condo you live in, you're like, hey man, I'm able to help everybody else. It's funny how, we become great at saving everybody else. We
Yeah.
just can't save ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? No. I mean, this
No,
is
for
this is
real,
a normal
yeah.
thing, right?
That's true.
And I'm like, oh my God, you guys have so many creative ways of buying properties. Now you have to just look at it. how do you do it for yourself?
Yep.
Right? From an investment basis, and how do you scale up your own
Yeah.
thing? And we said, like, literally, you could buy a property in Chicago,
Mhm.
a 2, 3, 4 unit property
Mhm.
with a 3.5%, with assistance, in this case,
Mhm.
with a grant.
Yeah.
So you could be in a property, $300,000-$400,000 property, and get it fixed up if you
Yep.
choose to.
And in addition to that, if you combine that with seller concessions, so the agent could also negotiate that the seller actually pays part of, not all of, the closing costs. So people are able to buy properties without even have to bring anything at closing at all.
Right.
Did they get their underwriting fee credited to them as well?
Yeah, so, as long as the seller could pay up to 3 to 6% of the
Of the
closing
underwriting.
costs.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I mean, which is cool. It was like, I was like, guys, not only could you do that for help so many people, right? And there's, we're saying that there's probably 6, 7, 8, 10 people right now in
Yeah.
Mastery, like as we speak,
Yeah.
that would love to take advantage of that program.
Yeah.
And be a phenomenal program for them to start investing with their first property.
Absolutely.
And get a 3 or 4 unit, get 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 in cash flow.
Yeah, get
right?
their feet wet.
Yep.
Get their feet wet.
And have the tenants pay for the mortgage.
You know, and the beauty is this, like, especially in
Yeah.
Chicago, when you're living in the property, it's a 3 unit, 4 unit. Now, is it going to be a little bit of work to find it? 100%, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That people have this idea, well, I have to do nothing. I could just call an agent and boom, find them. Guys, come on, right? You know, that's not going to happen. You're going to put some work, but the beauty is you can get the down payment assistance. You can get, it's only 3.5%. That can come from there. The seller can do 3-4% credit.
Correct.
At the time of closing. Today, the sellers are more apt to do that than ever before.
Which is very different from
Right.
a year ago.
Oh my
God!
God.
Now the sellers are
Yeah.
able to, and then there's buy downs and things like that.
Right.
But sellers are able to provide the concession now,
Right.
which before there's no way. We're in a different market.
And you know what the beauty is this, rather than just doing a house hack, you do an Airbnb house hack, right? I mean, literally,
Yeah.
You're living in the house, so
you're
not
living in the
staying long.
house, you're all following all the rules that Chicago has, right? All of the rules. And you have an Airbnb running in the property. So let's say you have a property that's a 3 unit property, right? Let's say your payment on that, because in Chicago, taxes are low. A lot of times, you know what people say is, oh my God, Andrew, all these problems. Guys, listen, right? Because the hill is steep, meaning because most people can't figure it out, people who do, it's extremely profitable.
Absolutely.
Right? It is extremely profitable. And think about it, on a regular property you buy for, say, $400,000, your payment may be $3,500, maybe $3,000, $2,800 to $3,000. If you had a regular rental, right, maybe you break even, or maybe you put $200 out of pocket as a house hack, right?
Yeah.
So still you're saving money like no tomorrow. But as an Airbnb, right, you have 2 units rented, you live in one of them as
Exactly.
an Airbnb. I mean, every month you'd make $2,000-$3,000,
Easy.
be in the
Exactly.
property literally out of zero. And that requires, as like sometimes people are like, what are the pieces that you're missing, right? It's purely about not the pieces that you're missing. It's about, can you take lemons and make lemonade with it?
Yep.
Right? It's like, so that becomes really, really, really important. Anything else? You guys want to give out your information as far as how do they contact you guys?
Yeah,
Yep.
but real quick, I just want to add a
Sure.
guideline to if you're looking for a 2 to 3 flat and you're going to use, a 3 to 4 flat and you're going to use this product that we mentioned, the guideline, an additional guideline is you must have at least 3 months worth of payments in the bank. You don't pay that to anybody, you just got to have it.
Yeah.
That's
So
about it.
I'm glad you brought that up. So what does that mean? 3 months worth of payments. That means is you can't have zero in the bank. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to bring that to the closing, but they want to make sure that, hey, for next 3 months, you can make your payments.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Which is, if you're going to buy a $354,000 house, you better have, say $10,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Some change, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically reserved. So just in case anything happens to you,
Sure.
you lose your job or anything like that, you still are able to pay that payment. So
That's
it's
fair
just
enough.
something like a 401k or an IRA is perfect for
That's,
reserve.
yeah. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be necessarily in your bank account. It can be a 401k. You have
Correct.
$25,000, $30,000, $50,000, whatever you have 401k. That's fine also. IRA is fine also.
Yep. It's not going to be touched. You don't have to cash it out or anything. We just have to show it that it's there.
Okay, got it. Right. You want to give your guys
Sure. You
information?
want to start, Andy?
So what's great about Sales Mastery is you have access to somebody like me and Joel. You know, not only are we here to learn different things from Andrew and the rest of you, but we are your resource as well when it comes to lending. Again, we are able to have access to 189 different banks. What that means is, my God, there's so many different tools in our toolbox, whether it's DSCR, whether it's bank saving programs, with home equity line of credits and things like that. I can be reached at 773-454-2466. Let me repeat that, 773-454-2466. Or my email is agaston@nexamortgage.com. So that's AGASTON@nexamortgage.com.
right,
If you guys are watching this, put in the comments. If you don't have it, we will provide it. But you can obviously watch the replay. Go ahead.
Perfect. Once more again, I'm Joel Contreras. I can be easily contacted at 773-297-9080. My email is joelc@nexamortgage.com.
Guys, super excited, thrilled. This was a fun conversation.
Thank you, Andrew.
They were in the office. I thought, why not have them join in for the conversation today? Having said that, thanks a bunch. I think on today is what, the 21st.
Wednesday.
So on 23rd, obviously it was the eve of Christmas. We're all going to be off. So for you, from all our end, from everybody, the Mastery family, Merry Christmas to you,
Merry Christmas,
and
happy holidays.
have a safe, happy holiday, whatever you celebrate. But before the new year, we will talk again because, have a good time at Christmas. Be safe. I think we're expecting some sort of a snow. We'll see what happens. But having
Stay
said
safe.
that, stay safe, guys, and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Take care.